Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today. We're going to be talking about my CMMS sucks. What can I do? And I'm going to turn it over to our President and CEO, Bill Roth, to start presenting. But I would like to remind you that any questions you have, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will have time for Q&A at the end. So if you put your questions in there, then we can feed them to our presenters and they will answer them for you. We're also going to have some poll questions. So your input and feedback is very important. So we encourage you to answer those questions. And last but not least, at the end, we will post a survey that we hope you will fill out to help us bring you even more and better webinars in the future. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to Roth IAMS President and CEO, Bill Roth.
Thanks a lot, Amanda, and thanks everybody for joining us on what is going to be our first webinar of 2025. Hopefully, if this is your first Roth IAMS webinar, welcome. If you've come back, thank you very much for giving us some of your time again today. So, excuse me, as Amanda said, we're going to talk about my CMMS sucks and what can I do about it. And so really, we're going to start with a brief introduction of myself, and I'm lucky enough to have a co-presenter today. We'll set the table with some poll questions to get a sense of where each of you in the audience is at as it relates to your current CMMS system, computerized maintenance management system. And then we're going to get into what we're hearing from the market about CMMSs. And obviously the title of the presentation kind of gives it away a little bit. A lot of people seem to think their CMMS sucks. Then we're going to get into a couple of areas where we think that even folks that have a CMMS system but they're not very happy with can start to get more value out of it and evaluate where they need to go forward. And then finish it up with sort of our recommendation once you get through those first two critical steps, how to work with the CMMS you have and or go to market and get a new one. We do have Q&A at the end, but please feel free to enter questions in the chat throughout. And when we get to the Q&A section, we're going to scroll back up to the top and work down through. So just real quick, as Amanda mentioned, I'm Bill Roth, the President and CEO of Roth IAMS, and I've been in and around facility and infrastructure asset management for almost 30 years now. In April, it'll actually will be 30 years, which is scary, but that's okay. And participate in a lot of facility and asset management organizations like APA all across North America. So Bob, I'll let you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Good. Well, happy lunchtime, everybody. I'm hoping everyone's enjoying your meal at this time. I'm Bob Anderson. I've been in facilities management, putting together facilities asset management plans, CMMS plans for the 25 plus years across multiple industries, across multiple different markets, for individual sites and or whole systems. So we know what your world is like. We've been there. I've been a facilities manager. Bill's been a facilities manager. People within our organization have been facilities managers from multiple organizations across the country. Want to go back there?
Yeah, we're going to jump into the polls.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going to set the table now, folks, with a couple of poll questions that'll just help. The answers will help Bob and I shape what we're going to present here over the next little while. And so let's go with our first question. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being extremely satisfied and 1 being not at all satisfied, how satisfied are you with your current CMMS system? Give folks a chance to answer. So we're currently coming in around 2.8, so kind of middle of the road. So maybe doesn't suck, but isn't quite what we would like it to be. There's a few 2 out of 5, so that's kind of getting into that range that we hear about. Let's go to our next poll question. How long have you had your current CMMS implemented? Less than 1 year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, or more than 5 years? Wow. A lot of folks more than 5 years. Interesting, interesting. So you've had that's quite interesting. We've got very few folks that have new systems in place, and nobody that's terribly happy with their current system. So I think that tells us at least that what we're hearing from the market seems to be relevant and relative to the audience we have today. So that's good. Next question, please. Third and final poll question. Okay. So how was your current CMMS implemented? I inherited it, which meant it was implemented before I got here. I was here, but I was not involved in the decision. I was here and was involved in the decision, or I was here and made the final decision. Okay, so a lot of people inherited it, almost 2/3. Give a few more seconds for a response. So, okay, perfect. So really very few people were actually the decision makers. So most of you were either involved or you inherited the system, which again is not surprising given that a lot of the folks answered that most of the systems had been in place for 5 or more years. So that really helps us folks. So thank you for your time. We'll jump back to the presentation. And Bob is going to take back over here and walk us through a little bit more in detail what we're hearing from the market about their CMMS system.
Well, the poll questions were very interesting there because it looks like a lot of people have had these systems in place for many years and you are moderately happy with it. So it looks like you've got, a lot of individuals who are fairly happy with the system you have, but you've got questions of how to make it better. And how do you make this mess, this chaos, better? How do you rein that in and use that information to become much more satisfied with the system that you currently have? As a facilities manager, there is a whole boatload of things that you have to take care of on a day-to-day basis. And how do you use your system to monitor and measure all of these different things and make sure that you're getting the data that you need to be able to manage your system, you manage your facilities better and prevent the chaos on a day-to-day basis. So what we hear is, we installed a system that, was too complex. It doesn't give me the information I need to be able to do the work I need to do. It doesn't give me the data to give me make conscious decisions about, what to do with specific pieces of equipment or specific technicians. You don't have the information that you need. It's like, again, too complicated and it wasn't set up properly. Well, a lot of that evolves back to the key questions of, what is the system in place for? Why do you have this thing in place? And is the data set that you have the right information that allows you to build upon it? I'm sure you've all heard the term before, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good data to begin with, if you don't have a good system set up to begin with, and if you don't have your handle on all of those different tasks, and a system that gives you that data to make those decisions, then you're going to end up the same place, not really happy with the tool that you're currently using. So today's presentation, we're really going to talk about how you reinvent, how you look back at how you implemented that system. And if it doesn't meet your needs and you need to go to market and look at a new system, then that's what you need to do. But if you have a system that meets your needs, it just wasn't quite set up right, it wasn't quite put together the way you needed it to, then you make that decision and we can modify the system to make it work for you. So getting the data right. What's the most important thing that you do? Well, look at all this. It's a big fishbone of all the different things that go into making a CMMS system effective for you. When you look at the implementation, making sure that the equipment that's in there has the right naming convention, your PMs have the right naming convention, they're assigned to the right technicians. You have a dashboard in place where on a given day-to-day basis, you know what process you have that's in control, and you can handle the outliers as opposed to having to work on fixing the process. By following a plan to make sure that each of these different elements are put in place, and then making sure that you have a process to measure to make sure the process stays in place, you're going to be much happier with your system. So, why start with the data? Again, GIGO. If you have a good asset management plan, you have good equipment data, you have the right PMs, You know what resources that you need. You have a resource plan that's allocated to the number of PMs that are scheduled to be done. By having a good PM plan, you know what I need this week to do the work. Without having a good set of data to start with, you end up with, continuously to reinvent what do I need to work with on a day-to-day basis. What's your desired data set? Now, this is a very important question because as you start to look at setting up a CMMS platform, EAM, IWMS, they're, all different work management platforms, making sure that you understand what data you need in your system to do the work you need to do. In an organization that you don't really need to have too many technical attributes on a piece of equipment, you can go with a much simpler system. More complex systems where you have many attributes that you want to track to make sure that you have all that information. It's important that you know what data you need in your data set, and you've consciously made a decision which things to include and which things that you don't need. So from that point, how do we make it better? How do we make it more satisfied for you?
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. And yeah, well, I think all of you have a current CMMS system in place, and it's almost every organization does. A lot of organizations are looking to change. There's a few still out there that I think that we here don't have one in place, but really the data that you need, to Bob's point, should be part of the decision-making process for which system you're going to use, because different softwares are designed to better manage different data. So once you've got, whether you've got a system now or you're looking to whether you're looking for a system now or whether you're looking to change the system you have, really it's about defining what does not suck look like if you think your CMMS system sucks. And so really what that comes down to is what type of information do you want to have at your fingertips. So this is just one example of a dashboard that takes all the data that Bob was talking about and puts it into an easily digestible format that's right there at your fingertips, easy to see, no diving deep. Obviously, you can dive deeper if you need to, but at a quick moment's notice, what do I need to know? What are the critical things I need to know about my portfolio, and how can I get that information really, really quickly? And as the old adage goes from Ben Franklin, is by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And a lot of folks, I know a lot of folks on this webinar inherited their CMMS system. I think almost 2/3 of the folks. Some people were involved. But I think that one of the things that I see, or that we see when we're working with a lot of customers, are just a lack of clarity about what they want the CMMS system to do, right? The easy answer is work orders, right? I want to do work orders. That's sort of, if you think, honestly, half the people that I talk to, they just say it's a work order system, not a CMMS system. So if that's all you want, that's a whole different set of criteria than if you want a true computerized maintenance management system, or an IWMS, integrated workplace management system, or a full enterprise resource planning tool, whatever you're looking for. So without asking those questions of what is important and what do we want the system to do, really, if we get what we want, it's luck. And if you've heard me speak before, any business strategy that relies on luck is a bad business strategy. And if we don't know, really, the opposite of of not suck is what do I want it to do? And so obviously, I think first and foremost, most organizations are looking to manage work orders, and you can manage work orders without an equipment inventory. You absolutely can. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's possible. How do I want to use it to communicate within the organization? How do I want to track my preventative maintenance program? How do I want to enhance my preventative maintenance program? I'm sure if we did a fourth poll question right now, most people are not doing as much preventative maintenance as they wish they were. That is another common element that we hear in and around from facility managers. So how important is building and tracking a preventative maintenance program to you? Do you want to optimize your staffing resources? How many people do I have? How many people should I have? What could I do if I had more people? These are all things that CMMS systems can do if you have the right data to begin with and you have the right setup. And obviously different systems do these things, have strengths in different areas. How am I tracking technician productivity? Am I tracking my technician training? How am I using this almost from an HR perspective in addition to just the actual technical maintenance activities? Am I going to align the skill sets of my staff with the training that I have to provide and the training I'm planning to provide based on my actual needs, based on the actual types of equipment that I have, based on the actual preventative maintenance work that I'm going to do? And also, when we're going to look to subcontractors to do that work, what type of work do we want them to do? How can we be as specific as possible? And how can we validate the value that we're getting from those engagements? These are all things that CMMS systems can do. This is just it's not a short list, but it's certainly not everything and anything that your organization could leverage and use a CMMS system for. But these are the types of questions that you want to ask, because again, if you don't know what success looks like, how are you ever going to know that you're going to get there? And so once you understand the data that you want to manage, like Bob talked about, and the data you currently have, and don't look at a system based just on today. Look at the system based on that desired data set, not necessarily your current data set, as Bob mentioned, right? We may not have this data set today, but this is what we want to manage. And so whatever system, if the system we have, can it manage that? If not, if we go to a new system, can it manage that data? And so once you understand your goals, these are goals that are in the vernacular of facility management. These are things you want to achieve. Then we basically have to translate those goals into an easy to understand list of functionality to meet those goals. So I want to do X with my CMMS system. That means that the software has to be able to do Y. That's the functionality that we're looking for. And I use the word translate very, very specifically, because the goal and the functionality of the software are not the exact same thing, because there's oftentimes different ways to achieve different goals. And so we recommend that you get as much clarity as you possibly can on exactly what functionality you want. And if you're not an expert in CMMS or in software or in functional planning and things like that, you may want to get some help with that to make sure that your language, your facility management vernacular, is lining up with the software vernacular, to make sure that when you're saying I want it to do X, it's actually going to achieve that goal for you. And not only it's going to, but how is it going to achieve it? Because once again, there's many ways that you can achieve a goal through software. So you want it to be in alignment with your current practices. Because again, if you've heard me speak before, the best software meets you where you're at. You don't have to update and evolve your processes and procedures to fit with the software. So understand not just what, but how it's going to achieve that. And you really need 3 criteria. The must-haves: if we have a piece of software, these are our non-negotiables. It can't not do this. This is core functionality. This is what we need to do in whatever system we're going to have. Then there's the want-to-haves, right? This is, it's not absolutely critical, but we really want to be able to achieve these goals. We really want to be able to leverage this functionality. We really want to be able to manage this data. And then the third one is nice to have. Hey, if it can do it, great, but it's not the end of the world if it doesn't, right? And this is pretty typical for software selection and implementation. What are your must-haves? What are your want-to-haves? And what are your nice-to-haves? Once you have that list of criteria, that becomes the scorecard that you can use to evaluate your existing CMMS system and another system if you do choose to go in that direction. So it really is your roadmap. And by prioritizing, again, for the super technical people out there, you can assign scores. A must-have is a 5, a want is a 2, and a nice-to-have is a 1. And when you evaluate those software, you can actually create a scorecard that will allow you to numerically evaluate a piece of software. So you've got the data. or at least you know what data you want. You maybe haven't had the opportunity to go and gather that data yet, but you know what your desired data set is, you know what data you have, you've identified the gaps, and you've got a plan to fill them. You also know what you want the tool to do, because your CMMS system is really an enabler of your data set, because data is just data. But the functionality in the CMMS system is how you're going to achieve your goals and how you're going to take that data, use it, leverage it, optimize it, and use it to make better business decisions for your assets. So for all of you that have a CMMS system right now, and are thinking, oh, you know what? I don't think anybody actually voted higher than a 3. I think we got 2s and 3s in our poll. So, you know, nobody's that happy with their CMMS system. So, really, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's kind of where we're looking at. And what we mean by that is that even though your CMMS system, even though you might say my CMMS system sucks, most of you weren't there when you implemented it. And even if you were, obviously something didn't go as you planned, because I assume for the one person who was there and made the decision, I assume you didn't plan to have a system that you were happy 3 out of 10, assuming you were a 3 out of 5, shall we say. So obviously something went off track. However, change is hard. Assuming that you are using if you're not using your CMMS system, well, then change is not that disruptive. But let's assume that you are actually using your CMMS system. You do have some data in there. You do have some functionality you've built in. You've trained your team on how to use it. Change is going to be difficult, and it's going to be disruptive, and it takes a long time. And I've talked to a number of organizations that have just gone through transitions, and it always, you know, takes longer, costs more, and isn't quite as good as you thought, as you planned, especially when you don't have that solid roadmap or that scorecard you want to go to. But honestly, if you didn't have clarity on the data you wanted to manage, and you didn't have clarity on what success looks like, until you do, how do you know if it's the right system or not? And so our primary suggestion is, before you go out and change systems, once you have that scorecard, once you understand the data that you want to manage, then let's compare your current system to those requirements. Score it before you necessarily go to market, because, back to the point before, change is hard. And so maybe the system can do, you know, Bob mentioned he had that slide with all the crazy complicated world of facility management. There's a lot of people that I know that don't even know the full breadth and depth of their CMMS system. So maybe it can do what you want it to do. You just didn't know it could, or you didn't have the right data for it to do. So again, start by scoring your current system. Based on that, you know, maybe it's better than you thought. Maybe it's not. But it may do things that you don't know it can do. You just maybe don't have it set up that way, or you haven't got the right data in there, or you need to, you know, flick a switch and it can do that. But maybe it can't, right? Maybe your CMMS system does suck, and maybe it's the wrong system for you. At that point, you've got to look at going to market, right? If it is the wrong system, then you got to go to market. But going to market this time, for those of you that weren't involved before, now you're involved, maybe you're the decision maker for the first time, you've got a desired data set, a current data set, and a scorecard within which to evaluate each option that's out there, because there are a lot of options. You've defined success for your organization. You go, whether that be for your current tool or a new tool. And the most important thing is, once you define success, you need to implement measurement tools and tracking tools and KPIs to make sure that you are getting and maximizing the value of your system by using that functionality and achieving the goals based on what the system you have or the new system that you've implemented can actually do. So Bob, I'll turn it over to you for
Good.
one.
Bill, thank you very much for tying all that stuff together. I wanted to mention that, the scorecard that Bill had mentioned in reference to being able to score your current system and determine what your goals are through the implementation of this process. We do have some templates that we can provide for you for free. Just email us. We'll send you a copy of them, and you can use those to determine what your must-haves are, what you would like to have, what you'd like to have in the future, and what future things that you'd like to have as well. And then you can score your current system using that as a template, and you can add and delete from that, from whatever you'd like. But it's like anything in life. Once you have, goals defined and you know where you are with reaching that goal, and you've reached that goal, it's a much more satisfying position to be in than not knowing what's in place and what's not. So having that scorecard up front, knowing what part of the systems you need to have in place, what's the requirements, and reaching those goals with the system you have will make you much more satisfied, and it won't be as painful to be operating that system. All right. So, going through this process is not an easy process. I mean, it really is something that you need to take the time to do the analysis, to make sure that you've changed, the behavior of your staff, because now you've got individuals that, they're being responsible for a piece of equipment, and their responsibility is making sure that the equipment data is really up to date, because they're the ones who use it. They're the ones who need to use it. They're the ones who are going to be taking care of that equipment. So if they get buy-in to that equipment, and they get buy-in to the PMs, and they get buy-in to the success, then they're going to be much happier. And that's going to deliver success. So, and one of the hardest things we mentioned here as far as the people, changing behavior, but going back to the process of the implementation plan that you would have used if you had a whole new system. Let's say you were coming in today in a whole brand new system. You would go through a whole series of steps to make sure that these things are put in place. You got the right data, you've got the right follow-up, you've got the right person doing the work, you've got a method in place to make sure that it's being done properly, it's being documented properly. When you reach the point where all of those systems are in place and 90% of your processes that in that big chaos before, 90% of those processes are in control, then you only have to deal with 10% of those outliers. And that makes your day much easier, and it also makes you much more satisfied with the program itself. I'll turn it back to Bill for Q&A.
Are there any questions in the chat for us? No. So no questions in the chat, folks. I open it up now. If anybody wants to ask a question, out loud, they more than happy to have that done. Just maybe raise your hand, and then we'll turn on your mic. Okay, so I guess you can turn on your own mic, apparently, from a functional perspective. So no questions? Okay. Well, folks, thank you very much for attending our first webinar of 2025. Look for more future webinars. We're looking, last year we did 9 webinars once a month for 9 out of the 12 months of the year. This year we're going to try to do 2 webinars a month for 9 of the months out of the year. We skip July and August because of summer vacation, and December because of the holiday break. But thank you all very much for attending. Please feel free to dive further into our thought leadership. If you do have any questions, if you'd like a copy of that draft scorecard or sample scorecard that Bob mentioned, please feel free to complete the poll here, and we would be happy to follow up with you directly to send you a copy of that scorecard or any additional information that you would like to receive. Thank you all very much. We'll see you in a few weeks, hopefully on our next webinar.